welcome yet again. Today we have none other than Dr. Emerick Louison, who is the African Union Chaplain to the African Union Chaplaincy in Addis Ababa. And he is also the producer of this show that we are having right now, which is Africa, the Continent of Hope. Welcome, Father, Doctor, or Doctor Father.
Well, it depends. You can, but it depends. There are some places where people like using father, doctor, and other places they would just use father. But definitely, it is me, the same person. Thank you very much, Linda. Thanks for welcoming to this wonderful show.
Thank you so much for that. So that means the titles do not define who you are, but the work that you do is what defines you?
We can say so. The title is not the most important thing. It is who we are and what we do.
Is this the reason why you produced this program that you're having right now, Africa, the Continent of Hope? What came to mind when you were when this idea came about? What is it about Africa that gives you hope?
First of all, the title Africa, the Continent of Hope did not come from me. It came from Pope Francis. And during one of his visits to our continent, I think when he came to Nairobi, if not Nairobi, Uganda, but definitely it was during one of his pastoral visits to Africa. And as he was addressing his audience, he said the world looked to Africa as the continent of hope. So that is where the title of this show was taken from, that the world looked to Africa as the continent of hope. And the second thing is that Africa, it was said even during the first African Synod of Bishops in 1994, and subsequently in the Apostolic Exhortation Ecclesia in Africa, Africa is often portrayed as a continent saturated with bad news. You know, in the mindset of many people, many viewers, Africa is one country. So much so that when you are telling somebody that I'm going to South Africa, the person will think that is the southern part of a single country. So they don't know that it is a continent with 55 member states, with 55 states. And whatever is happening in one country, people tend to use it as the mirror of Africa. So I'm not preaching a fifth gospel if I say that for many people, Africa is associated with hunger, associated with extreme poverty, associated with all the consequences of climate change, associated, of course, with violence, terrorism, and at times some people wonder if there are human beings who are living on the continent. So we're not denying that we have problems in our continent. But we also want people to know, in order to be balanced, that there are a lot of good things happening in Africa. And actually, far more good things than bad things. So that is why we are trying to present to people Africa in a new light. We're not the first people, but at least here as African Union Chaplaincy is also part of our mission to tell people that Africa is not just about disease and war and poverty, but Africa is also the land of life, of youthfulness, and with vibrant faith-based organizations, faith-based communities, a vibrant African church. So it is important for people to know Africa as she really is, not the kind of mental disruption or construction which is often portrayed on mainstream media.
So maybe on that note, what would you deem as the missing link between, is it an issue of dissemination of information? Is it that we are not having a lot of, or rather enough partnership with the media for them to show who or what Africa is about? What is the missing link for other people to understand that Africa has this to offer?
Yes, one reason can be communication, definitely. And we thank God that with the emergence of social media, there are people who are trying to present Africa in a new light. But you know, given the fact that we often rely on mainstream media outside of the continent, so these people, when they come to Africa or when they're talking about Africa, they're not being neutral because that's what they want. You know, sometimes even in church organizations, it happens that when people are writing projects, let's say a development project or project of for self-reliance, the donors are asking the people who are writing the project to accompany or to illustrate what they have drafted with pictures of Africa, but not Africa where you are showing them Bole International Airport or the highest building in Addis Ababa. All this, they don't want that one. What they want is for you to give us pictures of children who have big bellies, who are almost naked, and then who are living in very bad houses. So that by sharing it among their own donors or sponsors, it will kind of bring some, I don't know how to put it, but emotions, so that people will say, I don't know, we have to help. So that has been also sometimes. Sometimes even ourselves in the church, we commit that sin of portraying badly our continent because we are looking for money. So you don't ask people to give you money if you present children who are smiling, who are very healthy. Because people say, but why are you asking for money if everything is fine? So sometimes it is communication, bad communication, but it can also be some ideology. Some ideology on behalf of some people because misery sells better. So if you tell people about what is going fine in Africa, some people are not really interested. Just between brackets, this leads me to some kind of African movies or the cinema. For people who have been used to watching Nigerian movies, you can see that Nigerian movies, very often they portray Africa in a different light. You see people with nice houses, nice cars, and people who are very healthy. The ladies are very, very beautiful, the men very handsome. So it's also another way of portraying Africa. Because sometimes I had the impression that this Francophone cinema, they tend to show Africa just as if this is what we have in the village. People are going to fetch water in the remotest well, and then people are living in conditions where there's no light. Anyway, it's part of Africa. I'm not denying it, but we have to present Africa as she is. Africa in her strengths and also weaknesses, but with the hope that the final word is not misery, but Africa is destined for prosperity, peace, and harmony.
Thank you for that. And it's a good thing that we are all trying to depict Africa for the beauty that she is. Now, moving forward, as the chaplain to the African Union chaplaincy, to the African Union Commission. So how does the chaplaincy itself implement the work of the African Union to the Catholic believers? Or even other believers, because we believe that also the chaplaincy has partnerships with the Muslim society and even the Protestants themselves.
Yes, so this leads me to reintroduce myself as AU chaplain. So you already say that my name is Emerick. So if you want to take it, the full name, it's one of the shortest names in town. So it is Louison Emerick Bisila Mbila. So this is the shortest name you can ever think of. So I was born at a very young age, obviously, in Brazzaville, Congo. But I'm proud to be a dual citizen of the Republic of Congo, the smaller Congo, to distinguish it from the DRC. So the smaller Congo, and citizen of the archipelago of Seychelles, the Republic of Seychelles.
Okay.
So it's already kind of a Pan-Africanist agenda
Okay.
that you have, on the one hand, the Atlantic Ocean, on the other hand, the Indian Ocean.
Okay.
So I'm proud to be both a Seychellois and a Congolese. So I have been assigned as a Catholic priest, a member of the Congregation of the Holy Spirit, to work here in Addis Ababa as African Union chaplain, or chaplain to the African Union for the church. I came here in September 2019. So I began my work immediately, but then COVID came, so it kind of slowed down the work, but now, thank God, is a kind of resurrection. So the work of a chaplain is basically what you find in other forms of chaplaincies. So chaplaincies, like if you are working in a military chaplaincy, the underlying concept is that you have in the military people who are from a particular country, of a particular faith. So if you have an army, definitely you might have Muslims there, Christians, and other religions. So the faith-based organizations, or the organization you belong to, they usually assign people to take care spiritually of their members. So as the AU chaplain, my first duty is pastoral care of the Catholic community at the African Union Commission. And when we talk of pastoral care, it means the ordinary work a parish priest would be doing in his parish. So it means that we have the Mass, we have counseling, we have the other sacraments like confession, that we also have blessings of offices, blessing of houses. So the spiritual accompaniment of the people who are working at the African Union Commission. Because man does not live by bread alone. So it is not enough for people to have a competence in this area. The people who are working here, in order for them to be more productive, so to say, they need to be at peace with themselves. So in a sense, we are contributing to the work of human resources here to contribute to the happiness of the people. Like when people are celebrating their birthday, we share in their joys. When people are sick, we go and pray for them and with them and administer the sacraments. But unfortunately also when people are bereaved because they have lost a member, so we are there to accompany them in their moments of sorrow. So that is the first aspect of the work of a chaplain. And in that regard, is not that very much different from what other people might do for people in healthcare, or people in education, people in sport, or people in the military. So that is first aspect, pastoral aspect. But when we are talking of pastoral care, there is also an intellectual and cultural aspect. Because we are living in a continent where we have many challenges. So as a chaplaincy, we also have to invite people to reflect on the challenges our continent is facing. In that regards, I can mention what we did a few years ago. So we followed the theme of the African Union in 2020, silencing the guns. So what we decided to do during that theme, that year, 2020, it is to present another perspective to silencing the guns from the perspective of religious leaders, not just Catholics, but other religious leaders as well, what they have to bring. So we had a webinar because of COVID on the theme of silencing the guns and interreligious dialogue in Africa. Because sometimes the danger is when we're having summits, when we're having big events at the African Union, to invite mostly people from the military wing or military from the military, people from the diplomatic world, or people who are contributing, or people from the political elite. But religious leaders sometimes are sidelined. So the temptation is for people just to call you, for you to offer prayers. So for people just to call on you to offer prayers for the success of the summit. But it is very important for us as well to tell them that, no, 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 we don't just have politicians. The religious leaders are also part of, should also be part of the decision-making process at the African Union. So we organize something like that. We also organize something about the message of Pope St. John Paul II to the African continent, because John Paul II, who is the patron of our chaplaincy, traveled north, south, east, west of the continent and the center. So he delivered messages to various audiences, not just Catholics, but also to Muslims, to diplomats, to state leaders, and many other people. So we presented his message. So we have that intellectual dimension. So that is what I consider also very important for me as AU chaplain, that the debates, the questions that are affecting our continent, we discuss them as chaplaincy. So like now, we are in 2024, we are discussing about education, but it also to bring to the attention of people that the church and the faith-based organization, they have invested a lot in terms of education. So we should also listen to them, just as the faith-based leaders, they also have to gain insight from what the African Union is doing in the area of education. Lastly, about my work is also to facilitate contacts, because many people, they don't know how the African Union works. There is also
those in Ethiopia,
people, somebody like over 50 years old of age, born in Addis, but has never been at the AU. So it's not easy for many people and many organizations that have something to bring on the table to interact with the African Union. So the advantage we have as a chaplaincy is that not only that we know how the AU operates, but we also have members of the community, of the chaplaincy, in various positions. So it becomes much easier if a particular organization wants to interact with the African Union or to work with the African Union, to pass to us, and we facilitate the contact with them. So we have done that for Catholic organizations. We have done that also for non-Christian organizations, interfaith organizations, as long as we see whatever they are bringing on the table is not against our faith. So that's what we try to do.
Given the fact that sometimes you did mention that the faith leaders are left out of these important discussions, especially at the African Union level, given that we are all Africans, maybe we could also, could you explain some of the challenges that are facing the implementation of the work by the chaplaincy to the African Union in Africa?
Well, the first thing is this. Ourselves, we don't have an army. We don't have a government. We don't vote during African Union Summit. But we can bring a contribution. I usually take a simple example to show how whatever we are doing is not useless. When someone is sick or has to be rushed to hospital, the people tend to focus on the doctor. The doctor who treated the patient, and then they will thank him, thank you, doctor, for treating me, and thanks to you, I recovered. But generally, the reality is more nuanced, because in the healing process, in the healing of a particular person, we can see it as a community work, a community effort. Because when the person is not feeling well, and you are in your house, there are people who call the hospital. So those people who call the hospital, they are already part of the healing process. The people who responded at the hospital, they are also part of the healing process. The ambulance driver and the first aid team that came to take that patient from his or her home to take to the hospital, they are also part of the healing process. The people who received the patient at the casualty and who decided that the process has to be fast forward, they are also part of the healing process. And of course, you have the nurses, the different branches in the hospital. So all of them at the end, they have contributed to the reestablishment or the recovery of a particular patient. But sometimes people tend to focus only on the doctor or on a few nurses that were there. But they forget that if the ambulance driver did not arrive on time, maybe the patient would have died.
Yeah.
Or if instead of reaching the hospital on time, he went elsewhere, the patient would have died. So in a like manner, the work of a chaplaincy, that when we are connecting people to the African Union, when we are preaching or developing some teachings, and when we are organizing webinars, and when we are organizing workshops, all this is part of the contribution we are bringing. And of course, you never know that sometimes it's just an idea which was maybe discussed somewhere that a key person focused on and then decided to promote, that will contribute to bringing peace or changing things in the level of the continent. So I'm not saying that the religious leaders are sidelined, but I think much more needs to be done. It can be both on the side of the African Union itself, but also on the side of the religious leaders, that they have to understand how the African Union operates, and knowing how the African Union operates, become more professional. Because sometimes the temptation of many religious leaders is to publish a document or a letter, and then you expect the African Union just to do what you people have decided. But there is this effort of lobbying, advocacy, which we should also learn and implement at the African Union. So much more remains to be done.
Okay. Thank you for thank you, Father, for that. And it's quite very encouraging to understand the role that the church plays when it comes to institutions such as the African Union and even at the United Nations. Now, what are some of the activities that you partake as the chaplaincy to the African Union, given that we do have some of the faith people who attend masses and all that at the African Union, and how do you come about mobilizing and all that?
Yeah, very good question. And this is where we have to praise the African Union. Africa is a very spiritual continent, and one of the most striking things at the African Union is the fact that I can say the founders of the African Union, they realized that they need spirituality. They need women and men of faith in their deliberations. That spirituality is not something against development. You know, I don't want to mention other organizations, but in other organizations, you can never think of a prayer being held within the premises of the organization before a summit. At the African Union, whenever there is a summit of head of states and head of governments, there is a prayer breakfast to pray for the success of the summit. And also, during other key moments of the life of the African Union, men and women of faith are being called upon to offer prayers in an ecumenical or interreligious manner. Here at the Commission, can you imagine that just on the first floor here, we have 2 prayer rooms, one for Christians and one for Muslims. And this is within the main hall or the main building of the African Union. Very close to Nelson Mandela Plenary Hall, where we are. We have a prayer room for Muslims. We have a prayer room for Christians. And the Christians, we have days for spiritual activities. On Mondays, we have the Adventists. On Tuesday, we Catholics, we have our Mass. On Wednesday, you have the Ethiopian Orthodox. And then we have also Thursday, women, and Friday, other kind of ecumenical service.
Okay.
So on Tuesday, and everything is during lunchtime, from 1 p.m. to 2 p.m. So we have enough time, sometimes to begin with the rosary, then to continue with the Mass.
Okay.
So this is very touching in the sense that people are working. They will mark a post, they will come, they pray, and then go back to their offices. So this is something I find very, very striking and very encouraging.
This is on Tuesdays?
On Tuesdays, but the work of the chaplaincy is not to wait for the Tuesday's Mass. So at the Spiritan House, we also have our prayer room, our chapel. That is where I work, that is where I live. So we celebrate Masses there from Monday to Sunday.
Okay.
From Monday to Friday, 6 p.m. These are weekday Masses. And then weekend Masses, Saturday, 6 p.m. English Mass. And then on Sunday, 11 a.m. French Mass, but sometimes we also add English. So the whole week we are busy spiritually, so to say. But we are happy that our Catholic members, they come, they attend the Mass. And this is very encouraging because it shows that in whatever we do,
it's a community.
we need God.
Together.
We need God. It's not, if we want to build the African Union, if we want to promote unity or promote African integration, we have 2 models. We have the model of the Tower of Babel, where people are doing things in order to make a name for themselves.
Okay.
And we know how the story of the Tower of Babel in the book of Genesis chapter 11 verse 1 to 11 ended. So that approach is not the best. But we also have another approach. We also have another approach whereby we are building with God. Because if the Lord does not build the house, the builders are working in vain. If the Lord does not look on the city, the watchmen are working in vain. So that is what I think is very encouraging with the African Union. That yes, the institution is open to the contribution of faith communities. So it's now up to us to not disappoint the African Union and to be more creative in our spiritual contribution to the continent.
All right, thank you. So could you please mention some of the partnerships with the African Union Catholic Chaplaincy to the African Union?
All right, so at the chaplaincy, we are working closely with our #1 partner, we can say, here at the African Union, is the Holy See. The Holy See, we have an apostolic nuncio, who is the nuncio to Ethiopia, Djibouti, apostolic delegate to Somalia, and special representative of the Holy See to the African Union. So far so good, everything has been going on well. So there is a good collaboration. That's #1. There is also SECAM, which stands for the Symposium of Episcopal Conferences of Africa and Madagascar. So we have been working with them, trying to help them, but they are also helping us. So it is very good because this is how we show that we are a church. But there are also some other partnership we have with SIDO, that is the the Citizen and the Diaspora Directorate of the African Union, so which associate us to many activities they are organizing. And generally, when there are new organizations that want to know how the African Union is working and what can be done with the African Union, so I usually go and take them to SIDO. And we have very good friends at SIDO who have been very helpful to us. And there is also recently one interfaith organization which signed on the 4th of April 2024 a memorandum of understanding with the African Union through SIDO, known as Interreligious Association for Peace and Development. So our chaplaincy also collaborated with them in making it a reality. So that while also we have been doing something with SIDO, no, with these organizations. But there are other organizations that are coming up and asking us to help them. So we have very
in liaison to the African Union itself?
With the African Union, because they want to work with the African Union,
okay.
And some want to work with the African Union, but through the chaplaincy.
Okay.
That the chaplain is being asked to serve as a contact person
okay.
of a particular organization,
okay.
and we are doing it willingly.
All right. So does it mean that the chaplaincy can influence policy, or is it that it's going to be some sort of consortium or faith-based institution to influence policy?
The chaplaincy can influence policies, but as I said, well,
you don't take
we are growing, we are developing. As I say, well, myself as a permanent chaplain, I came here 5 years ago, and then we had about 2 years of COVID, which affected even the way we are working. But we are working towards that in the sense that the organizations that are working, they consult us, and then we give our opinion. Like last time, we had the Africa Spiritual Day,
yes.
And the chaplain was asked to deliver a talk,
okay.
And it was broadcast worldwide.
Okay.
So on the contribution of the Catholic Church towards the team of the AU for this year on education. So I spoke at the commission. So I hope that the speech was well received. But it's not just that,
well,
but we are working towards strengthening our position in such a way that we are also part of policy making.
Yeah.
So yeah, a lot remains to be done.
Yeah. Speaking of policy making, we also have the think tank, which was, let's say, developed in honor of Mwalimu Julius Nyerere. And I also understand that it's part of what the African Union Catholic Chaplaincy does. So maybe you could also speak a little bit about the think tank itself.
Yes. The think tank, the overall idea behind the think tank is this. We need to have resource persons we can consult for any matter. You know, the problem is that if the AU is discussing migration, it is impossible for bishops, priests, all of them to be expert in area of migration. When we are discussing education, it is not possible that every bishop, every priest will be expert in the area. So we need others. We need people with expertise. So the idea of having a think tank is we need to have fora where we sit down, we discuss things, and we bring our perspective into the discussion. So that is how we came with the idea of that think tank. And then, as a Spiritan, and who happens also to serve as executive secretary of the Spiritan Conference of Circumcision of Africa and the Islands for the past how many years? Almost 6 years, since August 2017. I've been serving in that position up to August 2026.
2026?
2026. No, sorry. 2026. In 2 years' time.
You're still, it's
yes.
still right.
Well, yes,
okay.
so I got 2 terms. So in that position, I was able to contact provincial superiors or group superiors to tell them, if in your country you have, let's say, 10 people, Catholics who are knowledgeable on some issues, give me the names. And then we are going to constitute a group, we call it a think tank, so that we organize debate among ourselves online. And when there are other events, we share the links so they can take part in it. But the idea is, when something is coming up, we can fall on them and then we tell them, please tell us something about it. So that's why it is important. Without think tanks, without reflection groups, there is no way we can go far. Because it is impossible for the same person to develop ideas on everything. So that is why we have that think tank, and more people are being added to it, because we need people to understand what is the purpose of the think tank, so that when we are making proposals, then people will know that this is coming from a faith-based organization, call it the Catholic Church, on this particular issue. And the reason why we chose the name of Julius Nyerere Mwalimu is because Julius Nyerere was a Pan-Africanist, well-respected Pan-Africanist, but he was a man who preached by the example of his life. He could have died in power, but he decided to resign and focus on other things, because there is a life after politics, the life after State House. And Mwalimu was also a Catholic. So the process of his beatification, canonization is underway, because this is somebody who tried his level best to put into practice the message of the gospel as a politician.
Okay.
So that is why, for us, Mwalimu, Julius Nyerere is a beacon of hope in the darkness of whatever we see in our continent.
Okay.
And we're very happy that during the last summit, a statue was inaugurated in honor of Julius Nyerere to emphasize his legacy.
Okay. Thank you so much for that. Well, you had it. And just in case you need more information about the think tank and more of the work that the African Union Catholic Chaplaincy does, you can always visit the website, which is the auchaplaincy.org, if I'm not wrong. But then again, also, we do have the social media handles on Facebook, LinkedIn. You can also follow us on X/Twitter. You can also follow us on YouTube, where we air most of these programs on, all courtesy of the African Union Catholic Chaplaincy. Thank you, Father, for that. Maybe one word of encouragement for that person who's listening to you right now, given that we are on Africa, the continent of hope, just a little bit of hope to that person who's listening to you right now.
Thank you very much, Linda, for the wonderful interview, I suppose. Wonderful, not from your side, but
well,
from my side,
yeah.
from the content. I hope that what I've shared makes sense. And also, I take this opportunity to encourage the viewers to subscribe to our YouTube channel, AU Chaplaincy Media. The word of hope for the people in the continent is this. You know, Africa is the continent of paradoxes. I don't know whether you have observed a phenomenon. A lot of youth, a lot of young generations in Africa, they want by all means to leave the continent. By all means, if it is through legal means, yes. Even if it is illegal means, crossing the Saharan desert, going to the North Africa, the Mediterranean, and even at the risk of their own lives, people are leaving. Or here in East Africa, passing through Djibouti, going to Yemen, and then reaching the Arabic Peninsula. Yes. It's as if there is fire in the house. And sometimes you hear people telling those who have gone abroad for studies, please stay there, don't come back, don't come back. And not so long ago, I was in Brazzaville, and I was following a conversation someone was having with people outside, say, hey, please, you stay there. As you're already there, don't come back. So these are the people who are supposed to come and develop the continent. They tell them,
Yes.
please stay there, don't come back. Now, the paradox is what? Is that while Africans want to leave the continent, but people from outside Africa, they want to come here.
In
So
Africa, actually.
if
yes.
you are in a plane, you see that when you are going to a particular African destination, you see a lot of Indians, Pakistanis, Chinese, Europeans, and Americans. They are coming and they are making money in our continent. And in fact, some are even thinking of recolonizing Africa because of all the potentialities we have. So now, this is the, sometimes I said, is that the mystery of faith or what? That ourselves, we want to leave the continent and live abroad forever, not to come back. And the people who are from abroad, they want to come and settle here. So if people are coming from outside and they want to settle in Africa, is because for them, Africa is paradise. And if Africa is paradise, then this is what we have to promote and tell people that this is a paradise on earth. So that is why I want to tell my brothers and sisters in Africa, don't lose hope. Because when you don't have hope, you are a dead person. It's very interesting to go and meditate or reflect on Ezekiel chapter 37, the first verses of Ezekiel chapter 37, the vision of the dry bones, which the prophet had. He saw dry bones on the valley. And then God told the prophet, do you believe that these bones can be revived? And then the prophet said, you are the one who knows. And then God asked the prophet to prophesy on the dry bones, and then the life came back. And God told the prophet, what you have seen with the dry bones is an image of my people, Israel.
Okay.
For them, it was like, we are finished, there is no hope for us. But God is saying, no, no, no. I am the one who is going to bring you back to your own land. So when we don't have hope, we are like dry bones, we are dead people. So Africa, in the African Union anthem, we say, let us make Africa the tree of life. So to make Africa the tree of life, we need to preach hope. We need to, create a neologism or a verb, to hopelize, to hopelize the people of Africa so that they will be proud of whom they are, their history. We have a very rich history. And to be proud of what God has given them and to now use all that God has given them to make Africa a true garden.
Okay.
And I'm telling you, in Africa, we have everything to live happily. The devil is not sleeping, but we are women and men of faith. We know that in Christ Jesus, we have the victory.
And of course, we give all thanks and glory to God. Thank you so much, Dr. Emerick. Louison,
Bisila
Mbila.
Thank you very much.
For joining us during this discussion.
Thank you very much,
It
Linda,
has
for
been
having
very insightful, is
Thank
the
you very
right
much.
word. And of course, if you're an African in the diaspora, we are calling you back home. You need to come back and invest. We need to preach home. We need to preach hope back home. Thank you so much. That was a very tough tongue twister. Thank you once again. And it is our sincere hope that you got to learn something during this episode for Africa, the continent of hope. And as of course, we will meet you online. You can subscribe on the button below on our YouTube channel. That is the African Union Catholic Chaplaincy Media. Thank you so much. I have been your host, Linda.